All right. All right, all right. Hello, hello, data-taters. J. Oliver Glasgow here saying tonight's show is on police wrongful profiling.
This is a diet arrest. Put the Twinkie down. Step away from the dessert bar. We have you surrounded.
You know, I always wanted to do that. This topic is certain to be controversial. If you are pro-law enforcement, you will not like some of what you hear. If you're anti-law enforcement, well, you too will not like some of what you hear. If we offend everyone tonight, then we're doing our job right. And if you become intellectually curious and go on a journey with us that leads you to a better understanding of the challenge that we face as a society, well, then we're doing our mission right. Our goal this evening is to set before you some facts and then offer a real-world solution that all sides can get behind. But before we begin, please take a moment to subscribe and click on that bell thing for a reminder. Like, follow, and share. Is that joke getting old? Nah. Share. And welcome to another thrilling episode of Private Eye, the show that explores all things privacy without wrongly profiling you. You know, we looked at a lot of humorous photos for this one, but I like that one the best. No one wants to be wrongly profiled, well, unless it involves an artist and the fact that you gained a few too many pounds during the pandemic lockdown. You know, a lot's been happening in profiling these days, and it's not all good. Am I suggesting that some profiling is good? Well, you bet. If my family is attacked by a 23-year-old white guy, my sensibilities are not going to be offended if the police don't hassle at least one Ethiopian grandmother for equity and outcome. I mean, you know, no offense to Ethiopian grandmothers who I'm sure are totally capable of, you know, criminal activity, but it's not necessary. For a deeper dive tonight, we have very special guests. From NFL fame, we have defensive end Mr. Vernon Edwards. We'll be going over some surprising research information that affects you, and we'll get his reactions. And then we'll speak with a super defense attorney and ardent supporter of constitutional rights, Gerard Kardonsky. And you'll be amazed at where all this takes us. You probably thought you have all this figured out. You know, most of us have settled on positions that align with our individual bias. That usually happens with deep social issues. But I want you to take a fresh look at this problem like we did. You know, back in May of 2020, most states were still in COVID lockdown when Derek Chauvin committed second-degree unintentional murder, third-degree murder, and second-degree manslaughter. Now, that's not my opinion. That's what a jury of his peers determined in a fair trial. George Floyd's death ignited a nation already frayed from a pandemic. Our own leadership within the Privacy Co-op began wrestling over the issue. You probably went through the same. Now, during this time, it was popular for CEOs to take selfie sticks on a walk and capture pearls of wisdom about their company or their industry or what have you. And we thought it would be fun to do a lighthearted take on that. So, you know, my team talked me into doing a series called Tripping with Jay. You can find it on our channels. And I'd open every walk and talk with some calamity, you know, tripping on a curb or walking into a tree limb or, you know, saying something silly, kind of making fun. Well, after George Floyd, we shot this one episode, and I'd like to get your thoughts. It's a down shot. I feel like Orson Welles. I look like Orson Welles. Definitely go from above. Less of this. That's what we want. How's that look? Natural? Yeah? Okay, good. Reason number 20 for becoming a member at the Privacy Co-op. At Privacy Co-op, our area of expertise is when large entities exploit your data and it's wrong and unfair and you don't think there's anything that you can do about it. That's when we step in and make things happen. Well, when George Floyd died, somebody challenged us and said, How are social conditions like driving while black any different than your mantra? And we all kind of paused for a moment and went, they're right. It's no difference. You're putting out data all day long, and large entities are exploiting it, and we're here to help. So what are we going to do about this? I'll tell you what we did about it. We mobilized our troops, and within 3 days, we had uploaded 25,000 law enforcement offices, that's LEOs, into our database, and we've treated them like businesses. We've reviewed their privacy policies where they exist. By the way, not a lot of them have privacy policies. That's something we're looking into. And we allow you to levy a complaint against them for free. How about that? Get the word out. If somebody has wrongfully profiled you, it's not right. You can come to our website, look up that jurisdiction, click on the complain button, which may say lawsuit, because we may have already started a class action lawsuit against them, and you can join that. But if it says complain, click on it, enter a civil complaint, and we'll take it from there. What we'll do is what we do with all businesses. We'll date it, stamp it, securely place it in our database, and then process it to authorities that can make a difference for you. That's what we do with businesses, and that's what we do with police forces now. That's what we do with government entities as well. So, reason number 20 for becoming a member of the Privacy Co-op, wrongful police profiling. We're going to help put an end to it. Join us. Your $25 one-time membership will help defray our costs as we put out more and more tools like this to help everybody. PrivacyCoop.com. It's your opportunity to gain control of your rights. All right. So as you can see, we didn't just give the issue lip service. Our COO made certain that we knew how she felt on the subject, and we funded the research and worked really diligently to get it right. And the numbers were surprising to everyone. We reached out to Black Lives Matter and other social groups with an invite to be on tonight's show and go over these numbers. They declined. Not certain what that says, but we knew we needed to get the results out. So I reached out to an NFL great, Mr. Vernon Edwards. You know, his dad was actually a first-round draft pick with the Giants. And I'd like to go over the numbers with you by showing you his reaction. Here's the interview. At Privacy Co-op, our job is to serve people who feel their information is being exploited by large entities. We help give them a voice in how their information can be used by others. One of our founders once said that the universe is made up of ever-expanding information. That means that you are putting out information that others may exploit just by, well, being you. That's what driving while black is. It's people putting out information that's been exploited by large entities, namely police, for decades. Don't believe me? We'll examine the data today. So, at the Privacy Co-op, the question was raised, how is this any different from what we do every day? Helping people who feel their information is being exploited by large entities. To help us answer that question, we have a very special guest in the studio with us today, Mr. Vernon Edwards. Welcome, Vernon.
Thank you for having me, Jay. Nice to see you.
Have you here. You know, it's something to have an NFL star here with us.
I played a couple years. The star would be kind of pushing it.
San Diego Chargers, and you sacked John Elway. I would say that was some highlights. And then,
I got the picture of a while.
You do?
Right.
SMU, Mustangs. Mustangs for life.
Ponies.
There you go. And your father was a police officer in Houston.
Yes, and 1972 NFL draft pick of the New York Giants. Yeah.
Oh wow, that's right. Your father did.
Yeah, maybe we get it
for
in.
the Giants.
Yeah.
So we got some NFL in the house. And you're no stranger to some of the racial tensions in the United States. You were one of the first children to be involved in busing, school busing. Is that right? In Houston, Texas?
Yes. We were actually part of getting bused over, to Will Rogers Elementary School, which was right next door to Houston Independent School District. And in Houston, Texas. Yes.
So you're this trifecta of information from all points of views that are pertinent to the problems we're facing today.
And I've been in IT for like 2 decades, which is way too long to be in any industry.
That's right. That's right. You're a technologist with a Fortune 50 company. That's pretty good. Very prestigious.
You sure they're not 20?
Maybe.
I'm just checking. All right.
So at the Privacy Co-op, we were very interested in what's going on, and we sponsored a study.
Okay.
And we asked 5 questions. I want to ask them to you, see what your responses are.
You always scare me when you do this. All right, go ahead.
So the first question we asked, and this was across a segment of the population that was evenly divided. It was properly proportioned racially, right? So we had the right percentages, and distributed across all economic strata and all geographic locations within the United States. And we asked this question. We said, have you ever felt wrongfully profiled by police?
Yes. Seriously, the one that I think really probably shaped my view most of this actually happened my freshman year at Southern Methodist here in Dallas, Texas. As an 18-year-old kid, we were here for 2 days. We were right in the middle of 2 days, and after practice was over, we decided to drive up the street to go Taco Bell, and we were profiled. Right, you had 3 African American men in the car. We just happened to be in the same place where a Taco Bell was burglarized shortly before, I guess we came that way. It was disturbing, to say the least. As an 18-year-old kid, to see multiple police cars surround you, weapons drawn, in eyesight of your university, right?
And these are college kids.
Yeah, we were 18. I think it may have been 3 freshmen and a sophomore in the car at the time. Yeah. And so that's just one incident that really stood out in my mind because it was the first time really being away from home. Yeah, that's the one that's probably stuck with me the most.
Would it surprise you if there were 34% of the respondents agreed with you? 34% of the people we asked that question to said they have been wrongfully profiled by the police.
34%.
Yeah. It's greater than the number of any particular minority. It cuts across all races.
That's not surprising, and it's actually, to be honest with you, it's good to know that not all the ire is pointed toward one racial group. Everybody's feeling it, and that may be why the groups and the protests are so diverse, right? Everybody had some kind of story like the one I told, or maybe not as bad, or some maybe worse.
As a son of a Houston policeman, would you feel uncomfortable going into a police station to register a complaint against a police officer?
Would my father be there? Yeah, I think I would be a little bit nervous. Like if my father wasn't there, I would be nervous, especially as young as the time I'm speaking to at age 18.
Did you report it?
No.
You
no,
didn't?
I didn't.
You didn't? You're not alone.
No.
When we asked this question to the survey, 56.5%. 56.5. That's
Right.
greater than the number of people that said that they had experienced it.
Right.
Right?
Wow.
would feel uncomfortable
you telling
with
me,
going into a
so you
police
telling me 56% of the people that you surveyed, right, said that they would have a problem going and report this.
Yes.
So either one or two things happened there, Jay. Either somebody was not up front about the 34%, or we have a big perception problem without the police departments.
Based upon that perception problem, we found out that people didn't go to the police department, right? They didn't go file a complaint.
I didn't.
Our stats show us that for the average person in
Right.
this survey,
Right.
they experienced this for more than 7 years. The average person. They've experienced this at least an average of 4 times within that 7 years.
Right.
And 66% of the respondents said that they didn't feel heard by somebody that could take action
Right.
and who actually wanted to or cared to take action.
Right. Wow.
So
Wow.
just by the fact that they're feel a little
Right.
unsafe about going to a police
Yeah.
station to turn in a complaint,
Yeah.
you've got 66% who felt like over a long period of time they
Right.
haven't been heard. And if you look at the numbers, the emotions that they felt at the time of the incident
Right.
versus how they feel now,
Right.
we see a very strong shift from the initial emotion of being scared
Right.
or angry
Right.
to now over time,
Right.
it has become sad or
Right.
bitter. So the volatile emotions have now moved
Correct.
into the vitriolic emotions, which
Right.
we know can fuel sustained violence for a longer period of time. You know, if you get angry, you can get violent for a short period of time and burn out.
Right.
But if you're bitter,
Yeah.
you can fight that
It's,
war for a long time, right?
With many of the movements that you see nowadays, the Me Too movement is one I would probably like to call out, right? Those folks that were impacted by such horrific things were feel really sad. Probably some even blame themselves, right? But the longer that stuff keeps going around in your head and you have no outlet, right, to discuss it, right, or to feel like your views matter, right? Yeah, I can see anger, sadness turn into being very bitter to the point of, sustained pain and hurt. Bitterness goes so deep. And I think if anything was caged or felt devalued at one point, they would, any group would strike back.
If people had an outlet,
Right.
right, where we could intersect that emotion before it converts into bitterness.
Right.
We asked this question: if a trusted third-party nonprofit
Right.
could take your complaint, keep a dated record,
Right.
and give it to the proper authorities for you at no charge,
Right.
would you feel more comfortable registering a police complaint? And remember, the first number is 34%.
Right.
Second one, where they said they were a little fearful or uncertain about going into a police department,
Right.
was 56.5%.
Right.
Any guesses at where the numbers would go and fall on this?
I think the numbers will go up.
And they did.
Yeah, because you have them in a place of comfort where they feel safe to voice their concerns.
Yeah.
Their issues.
75%.
75.
75% said that they
Interesting.
would utilize a third party to
Interesting.
voice a complaint
Interesting.
versus the 56.5% that said they wouldn't. They would feel fearful. And the
Right.
66% that said they haven't.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
The next question we asked was, would you tell friends and family about such a complaint feature if it were available?
Yes.
And the numbers again grew.
Yeah, because if you're in a safe environment where you can express your views of what happened to you, and you can be heard, right? I think all of us would feel a lot safer in that environment. I know
Sure.
I would, at least.
When you look at the 86.5%, that's the number that said that they would tell a friend or family member. Do you think that that's coming from perspective of it? They're excited about sharing this with somebody because it's something deep that happened to them, or that they know somebody that it's occurred to, or both, some sort of a shade of both there.
I think it's a shade of both, right? Because it's nothing like when something happens to your family member, right? It's like it happened to you, right? You can feel what happens to people that you love and that you care about, right? Yes, because they're going to want to get the word out.
So as the statistics seem to be moving in a cone, we're getting bigger and bigger numbers with every question.
It seems that way.
The very last question was an interesting one. We now pull it full circle back to the individual.
Right,
And we say, how likely would you be
right.
to use such a feature today to report a wrongful police action from your past? Now, that's on a scale of 1 to 10.
Right,
So it's getting away from would you or wouldn't you.
right,
It's how likely would you,
right,
right, be to use this. Now, out of 10,
Right.
you could put that slider anywhere you want.
right.
Where do you think the average person in that entire survey, even the ones that said it didn't happen to me, where do you think they would put that slider?
I think it would be definitely above 86,
Yeah.
right? I don't know, because you never get 100% of anything, right?
Can't really-
Like, at least nothing that I ever tried, right? But I would believe that number would go up.
It came close to 100%. 9.4 out of 10 people move that lever to a 9.4 of
Right.
how likely they would be
Right.
to report something through a vehicle if they had a third-party trusted entity that would help them do that.
Yeah. Trust is such a big thing, right? And having that forum to be able to do that and to communicate how you feel, right? Because we need to talk, like we need to express what we feel, and when we feel we've been wrong, right? And if you have a way to enable folks to express themselves and know that what's happened to me has been communicated to the proper folks, that this is being tracked, right? It is going to be tracked to resolution, and if a resolution can't be identified, right, you can raise those numbers up to your senators, right?
Yeah.
To your congressmen, to your representatives, to your mayors, to your governors, right? To say, hey, obviously these numbers say we need to do something different, right? Look at these numbers. Look at this data. I'm sorry, Jay. I'm kind of passionate about data, right? I'm kind of passionate about it. I just believe the correct use of data, right, is so important.
People need to be heard by somebody who, A, actually can do something about it, and B, takes them seriously. So I want to show you a little demonstration right now that is somebody using our website. It's a new feature that we've launched where traditionally you could go out and search for a business. Now you can search for a police department. And you can see this person's finding their police department. But we have a new feature that we've added to the card where you can click complain. And now you can go in and choose from a simple complaint or a civic complaint.
Right.
And when you choose civic complaint, we're going to show you all the fields that are necessary to fill out for a police department complaint. Right? So these are all the official fields that you would need to fill out. This is going through the Privacy Co-op. We're a nonprofit organization, and we're trusted, and we will track that. And we'll tell you the number of unresolved complaints against each police department. So, over time, exactly what you just said can occur.
Like I say, I love data, right? But I think this is great because we all need a safe environment, right, to express our feelings, right? We all need that, and that's pretty cool to be able to have something to be able to do that, right? And I think it's a public service. I really do, and I'm happy you guys are doing it.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Well, Vernon, it's great having you with us today
Nice
for
being
your
here.
perspective on this topic. Really appreciate you stopping by.
Anytime.
In Private Eye News, Stacia Glenn of Tacoma, Washington's News Tribune reported that a newspaper delivery man has filed a $5 million tort claim against Pierce County over a confrontation earlier this year with Sheriff Ed Troyer in a Tacoma neighborhood. Apparently, Cedric Altheimer, 24, an African American, suffered emotional distress from, quote, racial profiling, false arrest, and unnecessary use of excessive force of this man whose only crime was being a black man in a white neighborhood, end quote. The case involves their sheriff, Ed Troyer, who repeatedly said that he did not racially profile Altheimer. There are a lot of details in this case sure to come out in court. Here's two stories from the nearby town of Vancouver, British Columbia. In the picture on the left, VoiceOnline.com reported that two officers peacefully detained two suspects. Maxwell Johnson and his granddaughter were detained after a bank employee called 911 in response to suspicions of fraud. Here we see the two police quietly walked the two suspects outside, handcuffed them, and moved them apart by about 10 feet or so. Within about 30 minutes, the police cleared the matter up and released the two from their handcuffs. Private Eye News reviewed the complete video. We see no evidence that the police did anything wrong. But the Union of British Columbia Indian Chiefs has brought a human rights case against the Vancouver Police Department. Meanwhile, John Aspery of Global News reported that in the picture on the right, in the same city, police were called in to break up a, quote, large brawl, end quote. They approached the man witnesses said was the aggressor. They asked him to clear the area. The man became belligerent and physically hostile, so the police put him in handcuffs. And instead of that being the end of it, the crowd turned on the cops. With cell phones in hand videoing, they pressed in and even started shoving and threatening the officer's safety. Witnesses now claim that the police were guilty of racial profiling. Martha Ross of the Bay Area News reported that Katie Sorensen, a Pinterest influencer that posts on motherhood topics, posted a video detailing an attempted kidnapping on her children by a Latino couple. The video received over 2 million views. After investigating her claims, police determined that her story was false, and Ms. Sorensen has been charged with providing false information to the police. The couple, Sadie and Eddie Martinez, who have been cleared of any wrongdoing, held a press conference to proclaim their innocence and to say that they were targets of racial profiling. You know, folks, not everything is racially motivated. A mom with 500,000 followers on Pinterest can easily earn $5,000 for a single photo. Maybe this was just good old-fashioned greed, for money or attention or whatever. And yet, because the parties are of different races, it seems that people like to jump to that conclusion. In our first Private Eye editorial, there were several racially charged cases of wrongful profiling last year, and while the COVID epidemic waged war on our bodies, we were waging racially charged war against each other. Violence filled our streets from coast to coast, and tonight in some cities it still continues. In a world where we have promoted being offended to become the goal of any debate, the one who gets offended first wins, we are no longer interested in sharing, learning, or even listening. Instead, we set our clever traps out for the other person and wait for them to trip over them so that we can bloom in righteous indignation as the conqueror and winner of the argument. I lost a good friend this past year for quoting a scripture that has been quoted in times such as these by great nonviolent protesters of the past, such as Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr. It was 20 simple words, and yet they tripped a trap. The other person blew up, and I lost a best friend, someone who had actually saved my life once. As we close out our news segment tonight, I want to leave you with those same 20 words. And we'd love to hear your thoughts on it at pi@privacy.coop. All right. All right. Fantastic. It is so good tonight. We are so fortunate to have with us a very special guest, a defense attorney, Gerard Kardonsky, joining us right now. Welcome, Gerard.
Hello. How are you doing today?
Doing great. Thank you for coming. Gerard, every time we do an interview, we start the thing off with some questions from a French philosopher, Bernard Pivot. I'm probably slaughtering his last name, but, I mispronounce it every time. But, he typically had 10 questions, but we're a nonprofit, so we can only afford 4.5. So I'm going to ask you 4.5 questions. We'll start with the first one. Star Trek or Star Wars?
Ooh. That's a good question. I would say, hey, Darth Vader is probably the best villain that's ever existed, but Picard is probably the best captain that's ever existed. So, I'm going to have to, I know I'll get a lot of flack for saying it's an equal 50-50, but I'm a big nerd and I love both.
What is your favorite number? And it can't be 50-50. No, I'm joking.
Favorite number? 10.
What profession other than yours would you most like to attempt?
I'm an attorney, but I'm also an FFL dealer. So I would love to, really help my gun business grow. And, that's something I've always had a passion for. I've been a competitive shooter and collector since a very young age. So
that's exciting stuff. For our audience, FFL stands for
Federal Firearms Licensed Dealer. So
got it.
I own a gun shop.
What is your favorite flavor?
Mango.
And now the half question. We run out of funds halfway through it. It's who would you like to, and that's all we had money for. So just, fill in the blank however you'd like.
Who would I like to? Who would I like to meet? Unfortunately, is no longer with us, but I would have loved to have met Golda Meir.
Nice. That's a good answer. Gerard Kardonsky, Texas A&M and University of Florida. Hey, they played each other 5 times. I bet you, do you know the record? 3-2.
Yeah, well, you know what? When I was at A&M, it was still Big 12. So since they joined the SEC, I was a huge Gators fan when I was at Florida, and I was a big A&M fan when I was there. So I call myself an Aggie Gator.
That's good. Aggies got it 3-2.
Okay.
Aggies on the record for that, the times that they played each other. And you're just like your teams. You passed the bar in Texas and you passed the bar in Florida. 14 years as a criminal defense attorney, fierce constitutional rights champion, and now working at Leak Law in Texas. Glad to have you here with us. My first question to you, given the kind of the topic tonight, is you work with defendants every single day. You're a criminal defense attorney. I imagine you've heard all these wild stories. You get all the details, and I'm sure that they tell you about wrongful police profiling. How big is this problem?
So it's a problem that's existed for as long as anyone can remember in the legal world, and it is a big problem, I would say, till today. Is it as big of a problem as it used to be? In some ways, yes. In some ways, no. I can say that a lot of police departments have taken proactive steps to make sure that wrongful profiling, isn't as big of a concern, but it obviously still exists. No matter what, we're dealing with human beings, not robots. And when you put in the human factor, you're going to get wrongful profiling. People go into every field and line of work with some prejudices, and that's difficult to get over. So again, I would hope that it is a decreasing problem, but it does exist.
You saw our research that we put out, and particularly the of interest was the emotions behind this when you're the victim of wrongful police profiling. We found that early on, the first time it happens, you have these very volatile emotions, this anger or fear that's very short lived. And then our research suggests that over time, as people are not heard, they feel like nobody's listening to them, that they don't have an advocate per se. They end up with these emotions turning very vitriolic. So we get into the emotions of, bitterness or sadness. And these are very long-lived emotions. They can they can fuel a fire for quite a while. And I think we're seeing that in society today. With the riots that have been going on for some time in different cities. Did we get it right in our research?
I think you got it 100% correct. Like you said, people get upset over certain things, but that goes away. But when you get that feeling of no one cares or I can't do anything about it, that's where you get entire generations of people that have the feeling of, the cops aren't our friends, right? So that's not just something that I think sticks with one person. It is something that once it happens and they take that feeling of no one is hearing me, no one is helping me, that is something that they will teach their children not to trust, and to be careful around. I think that it's not only a single person's long-term problem, I think it is a generational problem that it becomes.
And obviously the police at some of the departments we've spoken to, realize that change is required or needed. But I was talking to a psychologist friend of mine years ago, and he said something that has stuck with me. It's just been in the back of my head for a long time, probably will be the rest of my life. He said, Jay, when a person really, really, really wants to change, it's very hard. It's very hard to actually change. But if they don't want to, it's impossible. My question to you is,
yeah, I agree with that 100% as well. So you can see.
So do the police departments want to change, I guess, is the question based upon what you're seeing.
So I can tell you for sure. I deal with a lot of PDs, around there's dozens of PDs around the DFW area, right? And I can tell you from experience that I've seen PDs take steps to become more aware of what is going on. Okay, so Grapevine PD, Fort Worth, I can tell you they've taken active steps to make sure that they are, you know, hearing what the community is saying and trying to take those steps. You know, your larger departments, the larger any organism gets, the harder it is to, you know, to control what's going on inside, right? So it is more challenging for the larger the department gets to be able to, you know, to see that those problems on a larger scale or a smaller scale as well, right? So, you know, for instance, DPD, Dallas Police Department, I know that they are also taking into consideration what's going on, but it's, you know, it's more difficult for larger departments to really see what's going on without the feedback from the community.
Right, and I don't think there's a scoring mechanism for us, citizens to say, okay, well, here's how they rank. I don't think there's an underwriter's laboratory evaluation or anything that's putting out a 5-star, rating on these things.
That's
So
right.
for us that are going through our lives, if we get approached by a police officer, and presumably we don't know, which, how evolved they are on that scale, what can our viewers do as they're approached by a police officer to, number one, best make it through that encounter, and then possibly put them in the best position going forward legally?
So, here's what I always tell my clients. In fact, on the inside of my business card, I actually give people directions on how to approach and how to react to a police officer. Okay. First of all, stay calm. Most important thing, you look, obviously most people don't get stopped by the police very often. So it is a nerve-wracking scenario. However, stay calm, give your information, tell them your name, hand them your driver's license. Okay. If it goes beyond that, I always tell people the easiest, most effective way to handle any situation is, if you need any other information from me, if you have any further questions, I'd like to contact my attorney first. And, it's always good to have, at least know an attorney, right? There are some attorneys that will work on a retainer. There are some attorneys that you can call. Most attorneys, including myself, will answer a phone 24 hours a day. So it's always a good idea to say just that. Give your name, your full name, give them the driver's license. If you have a license to carry, hand them that. And then say, anything further, I'd like to contact my attorney.
Good advice. And, if you find yourself in the middle of a situation that you think is wrongful, you're like, hey, this is wrong. This is incorrect. It should not be happening. Obviously, you don't want to challenge it right there in the street. But can you challenge it ultimately?
So you're right. You don't want to challenge it in the street. You see on TV every day how these situations escalate quickly, right? And yes, if you're in that wrongful profiling situation, your gut reaction is to say, this is wrong. I need to, make that known immediately, right? Best way to handle it is to just go with it. That is what an attorney's job is to figure out that either one, the stop was bad, 2, there was wrongful profiling, 3, let the professional handle that, because you are not in a position of power when you are pulled over by that police officer. You're not, okay? You have to realize that whatever is going to happen, in essence, the issue with, again, officers being humans as opposed to computers, there is a level of, unfortunately, a decision has been made well before anything happens, okay? So either that decision for an arrest is going to be made here, or it isn't going to be made, happens sometimes well before all the evidence that they need is gathered. Okay, if I can give you a quick example, right? Police officer walks up to a vehicle, you roll the window down, they see, bloodshot, watery eyes, they hear some slurred speech. They're not going to ask, they're not, by that point, they've decided, you know what, this is probably a DWI. And what happens beyond that is just supporting what the decision that they've already made is. So
Right, right.
you go. So again, stay calm. Go. Don't
What I'm
fight.
hearing you say is that nobody's ever become belligerent, and the policeman has said, "Oh, you know what? You're right. I'll let you go."
Never
It
happened.
just makes matters worse.
Correct.
I was looking at what a person has to do to actually file a formal complaint. They have to put their name, their date of birth, their driver's license number, an address, a phone number. It's a lot of information, email address, and then you get into the incident. Our survey and our own statistical analysis shows us that people don't want to go into a police station to do this. We're offering the free service to do that on their behalf, but people are still reticent to put their name down on all of these things, right? Is that something you would even recommend to one of your clients when they're in the process of going through a case?
So yeah, what the information that you've shared with me, again, it's something that a lot of attorneys have been saying for years, and the research that you've done has truly verified what we've said for years. People are afraid to make those complaints formally, attach their names to it, because they feel like it would paint a target on their back. And I can tell you that what I would inform my clients, and what a lot of attorneys would inform, I would say the majority of defense attorneys would inform their clients, is that while a case is pending, you do not file that complaint. That is something that, we have to take care of things in order. Let's take care of your case, and then, we can handle the civil complaints afterwards. Okay. And that is something that, most attorneys would inform their clients. You don't handle the civil complaint unless we tell you, unless we say, yes, you know what, this is something that we need to do right now. We would most of the time inform our clients, civil complaint, you have time to do that. Let's handle a criminal case first, because again, we don't want that target painted on your back either.
I'm just at this position. I hope the viewers are catching this too. This seems almost like a catch-22. We want to get data on the bad actors in the police force. I've been told by law enforcement they want to know who the bad actors are. The people with that knowledge are fearful, and even being told by their attorneys, don't fill this out while this case is active and pending. I'm starting to think that what we need to do is get the data in, and even if that means foregoing asking the name and the address and the driver's license, once you drop those personally identifiable information off of the form, they may not be able to actually fire a police officer based upon the complaint, but it seems like we could at least start to gain trending data on this thing. So, based upon this conversation right now, I'm telling you and the viewers that at Privacy Co-op, if you want to file a complaint for wrongful police profiling, we will accept it even if you put anonymous in for any personally identifiable information. So just first name, last name, put anonymous. If you want to put that for your street address, that's fine. I think at this stage we want to get the information to law enforcement. I think that might help. The media lags on this stuff. They sometimes get ahead of the story. They're sometimes behind the story. But right now, from your vantage point, are things getting better or worse?
From a media perspective, I would say that things are getting better, and I'll explain to you why. Everyone today is walking around with a movie studio in their pocket, right? Why do we see so much more today than we ever did in the past? Because while people may not want to file a complaint personally with their name attached to it, they don't have to right now as much as they did in the past, because guess what? Every stop that happens, every arrest, if there's people around, the first thing they do is break out that phone, hit the record button, and you have dozens of people, cameras all around you recording everything that happens. So that's why we see more today than we ever did in the past. But does that always help? Absolutely not. Does it help the person that gets stopped on the side of the road with cars zipping by, no one there to break out a phone and start recording? So the majority of your wrongful profiling happens when there's no one around, right? It's while it's getting better, it's not exactly great yet.
Gerard Kardonsky, it's been fantastic having you on the show. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
And folks, you know what? It'd be perfect time for us to check in with Blank Private Eye and find out what he thinks about this topic. So let's join now Blank Private Eye.
I'd been working on a case. During that case, a lion and a tiger were set upon me, chewing me to bits. I thought maybe a circus would give me the answer I was looking for. I was looking for a freak, a tall freak. Freaks, tigers, and lions. It all adds up to the circus. I approached a peanut vendor for answers when she walked in. A tall, statuesque ebony beauty in a satin red dress and a tear running down her perfect cheek. I stepped towards her and asked why the waterworks from a dame that probably drives men to weep. She stepped towards me, close, too close. The kind of a closeness that can make a man forget purpose and remember that if he brushed his teeth or not. She wiped the stray tear away and forced a smile. Immediately I saw a face that could make 1,000 ships return back to port. She said, "My name's Baronet. I was coming to the circus to forget my troubles, but trouble found me on the way." "Oh, how so?" "The coppers pulled me over, read me the riot act, treated me like dirt." "Because you're black?" I speculated. "No, because they don't like satin," she replied. I said in a vain attempt to comfort her, "I've heard some horror stories about wrongful profiling in my time, all of them despicable. But when cops start harassing beautiful dames just because of a fabric choice, it's not a choice," she objected. "Oh, how so?" She slid her hand down her side, smoothing the dress, and cooed, "I was born to wear satin." And then she looked me in the eye and said, "I can't help it." "Well, wrong is wrong," I replied, "especially considering what they wear. Probably poly cotton blend, I guessed." She shot back, "Neoprene." I must have had that look on my face, probably like the one you have on yours right now. So she explained, "Beach Patrol." "Ah, that makes sense," I replied. "Well, wrong is still wrong." She stepped up even closer and coyly asked, "But what's a girl to do? Satinarians are a minority, and they have all the power." "No, they don't. Turn in a complaint. It actually works." She pouted, the kind of a pout that makes a man melt, and she said, "But that means going into their hive. I would be scared, and besides, I'm allergic to neoprene." You'd be amazed at how many people feel the same way you do. That's why this outfit, called the Privacy Co-op, is now submitting complaints for you. It doesn't matter what makes you different. Just go to their website, look up a law enforcement agency, and file your complaint there. It's free, takes only a few minutes, and can really turn things around for all of us. All of us? I pulled my collar down, giving the dame a gander at what lies underneath. Vicuna, I confided. Yeah, Baronet's taking her neighborhood back for the good guys. There's something about sharing fabric lifestyles that really connects people. So remember the lesson of Baronet. In a network where they buy and sell your secrets like cryptocurrency, it's good to have a friend who values your rights. I'm Blank, Private Eye.
All right. Well, this has been an eye-opening show for sure. Oh, you know that sound? You know what that means? It's time for Cowboy Caboose, my favorite segment, because it's the end. Well, do you understand a little bit better the problem that we face together with wrongful police profiling? We hope so. Remember, you can file a complaint at Privacy Co-op anonymously. Just look up any police department, click complain, and any blank that you don't wish to fill out, just put anonymous in it, and we'll take it from there. Folks, if you were counting tonight, we had 4.5 of our famous 10 questions. So let me ask one to you now. I guess it's number 5.5. Yeah. What'd you think? Let us know at pi@privacy.coop. We look forward to hearing from you. And speaking of hearing from you, this evening we heard from Jeremy online, who said, if I put in a complaint through your website, is it truly anonymous? What a great question. You know, let's bounce up to the... Love that. And here we are at Privacy Co-op. I'm going to scroll down, Jeremy, and I've already entered the word Hampton just as a, a random thing. And, hey, folks at Hampton Falls Police Department, I'm sure you're lovely. We're just doing this as a demonstration. And click complain. So look up your police department and then click complain. You'll see the civil complaint come up here. I'm going to take my name and just replace it with anonymous. And a date of birth, I'm just going to put in something, false or fake for right now. I'm going to type in the license number. It's just anonymous. Next. And for all the addresses, just put in anonymous here. That's fine. And for the zip code, make sure you put like all zeros, something like that. And, for the email address, I'm just going to put anonymous at something, like x.com. All right. So phone number, do the Hollywood thing, Jeremy, 555-555-5555. There we go. Now, we're all clear. What I really wanted to get you to is this is the most important part of the complaint. So you can fill out the incident date, the time, the location, and all the details. That's what's key. And just hit submit, and we'll handle it from there. I talked to our CTO during the break, Jeremy, and I asked him, can we just make this a feature so that people don't have to type anonymous in all those cells? He said, yes, so coming soon, you won't even have to do that. Well, folks, that kind of wraps up our show for tonight. If you want our absolute best promo code ever, I'm going to invite you to go back and look at the episode titled Your Child Taken. That's season 1. Episode 7, we have our best code in there. We certainly need your help. And until next time, this is J. Oliver Glasgow saying, later, data daters.